And welcome to the Fabricator Live. This installment, we're going to be chatting about our February 2022 issue of the Fabricator. I'm being joined by Steve Heston. Steve, can you believe that? I don't know where that came from. Tim Heston, senior editor of the Fabricator. He's at a remote location that can't be revealed. He's in witness protection. No, he's at his home office in Georgia. So, chatting about our February issue. It's a special one during the year. It's the one where we share our industry award. And this year it went to O'Neill Manufacturing Services in Birmingham, Alabama. These folks stand out for a few things, not only their market success over 2020 and 2021, but also what they're doing to kind of take advantage of economic opportunities coming out of the COVID slowdown. And just to give you an idea, they're a big operation. They've got 8 locations: Birmingham, Cedar Falls, Greensboro, North Carolina, Cedar Falls, Iowa. I should say where that is. Houston, Texas, Indianapolis, Indiana, Louisville, Kentucky, Monterrey, Mexico, and Pittsburgh, PA. In our Fab 40 ranking, they come in around number 6. They are forecasting revenue of $210 million in 2021. They have just under 1,000 employees. And size doesn't make for all the reasons why a company might win our industry award. For them in particular, it's kind of what they're doing to act small, even though they are large. And I think I wrote down a couple of examples. In Pittsburgh, their location, they have they're a company that size. Anybody in metal fabricating nowadays are struggling to find the right employees, and they launched a maintenance training program, 18 months long, where they take some of their production floor employees who show interest in this area. They tack on 4 extra hours of training related to maintenance while they're doing their job, and over 18 months, they accrue the skills that they're able to kind of step into these roles. They take that all the way through leadership training for their employees, and to the point where 80% of their managers in the company, including all the GMs of their production facilities, were promoted from within. So to me, that kind of captures the spirit of what we've talked about, Tim. Career pathways, selling more than just a wage or a job. It's selling a career, and O'Neill kind of captures that. Now, don't get me wrong, they're in a position, they're a large company, they have a lot of opportunity for pathways. Nonetheless, it's good for companies of all sizes to keep that in mind as they develop skills. Maybe titles don't necessarily change, but skill development, I mean, companies of all sizes can kind of get involved with that. And I know you've seen that in a lot of stories you've done with some of the leading metal fabricators in the U.S.
Yeah, and especially in the February issue, what we cover kind of related to that with the career opportunities, especially at these larger fabricators. FMA did its annual capital equipment forecast survey, and from that we gleaned some interesting information, specifically with buying patterns at larger operations. Larger operations today, according to the survey, it's nearly tripled what it was or almost quadrupled. In fact, if you looked at some of the numbers since 2010, which obviously was a low point, but it's kind of measuring from, all right, we came from that recession, and how has the arc progressed? Where the industry's smallest operations with what we define as fewer than 20 employees, the CapEx increased only about 15%. And a lot of the spending has happened in the fiber laser realm, in the automated press brake realm, in these machines that cost 6 and quite often 7 figures, that are kind of changing the game as far as barrier to entry in the field. And so it can make a small shop act big, for sure, because there are a lot of shops I talk to that do make those huge investments. I talked to CB Fabricating not too long ago. They have 18 people, but huge automated 9 kilowatt system,
right,
with unload and load automation, 18 employees, but was able to expand, and he kept reinvesting in the business. That's actually in March, not in February, but it kind of relates to this. But it just shows that the place for those opportunities is changing. And so,
Right.
you know, and with all the capex and those larger shops too, that's where the crux of the skilled labor crisis is happening, is how do we find people to operate and manage these incredibly productive machines? So,
Yeah,
which will become,
and for a lot of companies, they're just, yeah, they're looking for people who have a desire to learn, who have the ability to show up on time, and they're willing to train. And I think, O'Neill is a big believer in that. You to go back to the CapEx spend, they spend between 8 to 10 million per calendar year. And
yeah,
as I was writing the story, they were kind of comparing a 12, or not comparing, but offering up a 12-month calendar time frame as an example of what they've kind of invested in. And over that
right,
time frame, it was something along the lines of five fiber laser cutting machines, a laser tube cutting machine, vertical machining centers, press brakes. So with the new technology comes an opportunity for somebody to kind of be a part of something that what I think everyone tries to push for in this industry, a depiction of what modern manufacturing is. And
yeah,
you don't want to use the term knowledge worker, but these are not the same devices that people were using 20, 25 years ago. So
right.
it really, you need people to be thoughtful on the shop floor, to be not only productive, but to kind of create that secret sauce, for lack of a better phrase. The people that want to contribute to continuous improvement activities, and that is really only available if they grow up in your company. You know what I mean?
Right.
Somebody who walks in off the street, even if they have metal fabricating experience, can't contribute right away, because each shop kind of does things their own way, and there's different
Right.
personalities involved. It's really interesting to see, as you describe, people on the small side of things, even in the largest companies, kind of figure out what works for them.
Yeah. What's interesting too is they, one challenge to a lot of to a long tenure at a particular company would be kind of narrowing the vision of what's really out there. And so part of the career path for a lot of modern metal fabricators is to see what's out there, to look beyond what their shop floor is. And a big I'm referring now to our vertical rolling story. There, years ago, I visited a great rolling shop in the Southeast and saw, and it was a job shop, so it was a volume thing. There's a reason why they did this, but they had happened to have a very thin can course to form, and it was held in place. They had used to hold it in place by cranes, and then they invested in material handling, so you had that overhead support. So the rolling was very very precise, and they showed it to me. It's like, it was great. But that was 10 years ago, and I'm just thinking back of seeing that big can being drug off that roll and rotated vertically, and moved down the line, going, well, why wasn't it rolled vertically to begin with? And their vertical rolls are still a niche in the rolling industry, but we feature them this month in tank production, on-site rolling. There are a lot of on-site rolling, especially in Texas, happening where they bring the rolls right to the job site and make the tank right there.
How thick can those systems handle?
Well, their sweet spot is thinner gauge material. You're not going to get heavy plate anyway. But it doesn't matter, because for heavy plate you don't have the bowing anyway. So when the heavy plate goes up, it doesn't bow under its own weight. With thin plate, it does. Job shops compensate for it because they have so many different kinds of plates. But vertical roll, if you do a lot of thin sheet rolling, it is an option only for certain things. The article does. It's obviously no technology is a panacea. So if you do have to do a lot of pre-bending on it, it doesn't work. But getting back to a broader perspective, seeing that machine in action, I was like, wow, this shows real throughput in a large workpiece metal fabrication environment, which often you don't see. You see just, all right, they're just sitting there for hours. You don't see it actually moving down the line, where with these shops, boy, it's really moving down the line. It's really interesting to see. So
there's this industry has so many clever people in it that I think it's it may not be one marked by people with advanced degrees from Ivy League schools, but if I had to pick a team to figure out how to get things done at the collapse of Western civilization, it's going to be filled with metal fabricators and the eggheads with the test tubes. We're going to leave them behind and kind of let them let them figure out the actual antidote for the zombie plague. But speaking of clever people, I wrote a story involving Okno manufacturing in Orborg, Manitoba, and this is much more basic approach, but it's probably one of my more favorite things to do is actually talk to a fabricator that has its own product line, because at this point they're actually able to go in depth about it. Because many times, as you walk a shop's floor, they'll show you parts, they'll tell you what it's for, but they can't really get into specifics, or you can't share a picture of it because it's not their part. So these folks, I think 2004, there was a slowdown, a major contract didn't come in. They decided to do what smart shops do. Instead of lay people off, they try to put them to work around the shop. So doing some basic cleanup. What I don't know officially if they engaged in 5S or 6S, but that was kind of what it was. And they wanted to do something with some of their punch tooling that they had for the C-frame presses. And as he went to his catalog, they, the regular sources, I think they didn't mention it, like Mac Tools, something like that. A fine company, don't get me wrong. He was kind of taken aback by the cabinets they offered for a price range. They went up to like 10 grand. And I think anybody that's kind of, what was the old show used to be called, Pimp My Ride, who pimped out their garages, they know that these type of cabinets can get pretty expensive, and they're thin sheet metal, so to handle heavy tooling is probably a big ask. So he set forth to kind of develop his own cabinets, and he went with a swivel style with very thick components that are able to maximize the entire space, but still be open with one hand, because he's a fabricator. And what happens if a guy is going for a tooling change out? He's going to have his tools in one hand. He's going to want to open the drawer with the other hand. So he's also expanded that out to not only part of the reason we wanted to cover it was for press brake tooling. So you can adjust the height of these new swivel storage things. But he had a picture. They're putting these things like in the back of trucks, these service trucks that have these styles. It's really developed into a core business for this fabricator. But once again, they have a need, and this is what they do. They have a need and they solve it for other people. This just happened to be a case where they actually solved it for themselves. Right. And it was just a fun conversation to have.
Right. Well, it's also about communicating that need too. Is there's another again, this riffing off of another article we have in the magazine about marketing video, and just thinking of the shop that you talked to and how they would communicate that to their end customer base, the way you talked about it, and you see one picture of it in our magazine, the light bulb goes off, it swivels around, you can see how that tooling works, and in the video format, even better, you can see not only how it works, but the disadvantage of a prior method, the how much time it actually takes to retrieve tooling if it's not organized, at least in a basic fashion, but also just even in a traditional press brake tooling cabinet. And so I talked with a video production company out of New York. And Robert Weiss is the president, and they do a bunch of technical videos for various kinds of manufacturers selling technical products, and also services as far as what even designed for manufacturability videos. So the article goes into depth with that, and then I have another article that's going to be out, that's kind of a complementary article to that, is training videos. It's how to shoot, say, how does this press brake operator change his tooling? Let's video it. And also this company called Deep How, who I actually met at FabTech in 2021, edits the video automatically through artificial intelligence. And thereby you can streamline the video training with a simple smartphone, and you just upload it. And you kind of create your own kind of Khan Academy for your in-house training, so internal and external use of video, which I think more and more readers are really excited about, because they're trying to communicate to to the young guys, to the young
Yeah.
generation, and going through a manual. It's kind of tough as far as that's concerned, and even even the best written manual step by step can get rather confusing. But if you just watch somebody,
Right.
and the traditional method of training has been shadowing, right? But these guys are leaving before they can, help the next guy come along. They're retiring in droves. So how do you capture that knowledge?
Well, I know we actually done this story in the past where people are able to incorporate video as part of a work process that then is easily accessible through a tablet. So instead of relying on written work instructions, now it takes a little bit to put this together. Let's make no lie about that. But with technology available to small businesses of all kind, they can do get pretty serviceable results. And not only for that, but just for their own marketing purposes. I can't tell you the number of times I've gone to a website for a job shop just to see how particularly during COVID where we can't get out, how their video gives me an idea of how their technology kind of works in the midst of their shop floor, what exactly they're doing with it. So yeah, I mean, it's probably the main impact of communications during this time is the ability for people to rely on video to learn, which just wasn't the case.
Yeah, and to learn and to spread that tribal knowledge and to also verify that tribal knowledge as well, because there's been so many, because of this big kind of boomer retirement, we're finding, I used to go to visit a lot of shops and they just, introduced me to their guru press brake operator or amazing TIG welders. Oh, it's just magic. Look at that. It's just magic. And it's, the guy is one with the torch. He's one with the machine, where he can fold it all up in his head. It's amazing to watch him work. And he was just the shop floor magician.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, what happens when they go?
Yeah, right.
And it's not documented, and somebody can't replicate. It's almost kind of it's pride in workmanship, but the pride, a lot of shops I'm talking to, the pride needs to shift outward and say, all right. The pride of my ability to communicate my knowledge and to spread it throughout, so that we're all speaking the same language. That when you mean K factor, you mean K factor. You mean bend deduction, you mean bend deduction. And when you mean bend allowance, you mean bend allowance. The three different things. Right. And it's just it's an interesting. And of course, Steve Benson and I, who I work with on bending basics all the time. We talk about this all the time. Right. So,
if you get those skilled people, skilled press brake operators talking amongst themselves. I mean, sometimes as an outsider, it sounds like a foreign language, but there's a science behind it, and there's no getting around it. You're better off people understanding that as opposed to just relying on what the control says.
Yeah, I mean, before the pandemic, actually, I visited Metcam, and which is here in Georgia, and talked with their master punch press operator and punch press programmer. And he was so proud of his static nests. He did, as far as he could nest under the clamp, he could reposition. And he said, look at this, look. And he brought me through the process. And also there was a young guy sitting next to me, and he was learning too, as far as, look, this is how I could do this. And the pride he had in that layout, and as far as how he had it organized, it was really neat to see. And it was great that he was able to communicate that, because and the industry needs more of that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
So we invite people to check out the February 2022 issue of the Fabricator. Have any comments or questions?
No questions, but two separate folks from Lima, Peru have reached out to say hello that they're watching, Carlos and Miguel.
That's awesome. Yeah. Hello to our friends in Peru, Carlos and Miguel. Peru, awesome cuisine. Great fusion of cultures in Peru. I can't get enough of Tanta in the city of Chicago, Peruvian restaurant. I wouldn't, if our Peruvian friends visited FabTech, I would not take them to a Peruvian restaurant, but for all the people around Chicago that aren't familiar with Peru, it's a great place to start. So thank you guys. I will say, feel free always to reach out to Tim or me. Man, I hate when I do that. If you have story ideas or you think something should be covered or so you'd like to see in the pages of the magazine, I don't offer that invitation enough, but that's always something we want to keep in mind. So, go ahead, Tim.
No, and also, in a couple of weeks, we'll be heading off to Miami for the FMA annual meeting.
Correct.
And Dan and I will both be there covering it diligently. And also one more news is that a little later this week, we are opening up the Fab 40 in
Yep.
June of our annual list of the top 40 fabricators. So watch out for that on
Yeah, yeah.
fabricator.com/Fab40.
Right. FMA annual meeting, March 1st through 3rd. We'll have our keynote address the first day, that Tuesday, Lourenco Gonçalves. I like to practice my Spanish. That's about it, though. That's literally 2 days of practice. So thanks for reading, and stay tuned. We'll have more exciting metal fabricating coverage coming your way. Thanks.